Part 6. I just want to be a quiet Tianlong person. Author, Dai Tianlong. Chapter 51. As soon as Bai Xian raised his hands, the sound of howling wind suddenly came from a very far away direction, getting closer and closer. Everyone looked to the rear at the same time. A man wrapped in a ball of air was speeding towards the direction of everyone. The target was Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel's warship. Everyone is on alert. The Flying Squirrel shouted, drew out his sword, and prepared to face the enemy. Being able to fly in the air at such a fast speed must be a devil fruit user. As far as he knows, there are only one person in the world with such power. There is a person, a golden lion. The Empress raised her beautiful eyebrows and looked angrily at the figure galloping in the distance. Who is coming? The Flying Squirrel shouted at people, but no one responded to him. The Flying Squirrel held the hilt of the sword tightly and glanced at the Empress beside him. The other party had no intention of helping at all, and even showed a sneer, obviously preparing to watch the fun. It's not my pirate ship that was smashed. If I die, I will have a reason not to participate in the call, Hancock thought. Flying Squirrel broke out in a cold sweat and stared at the incoming enemy. If he is allowed to go at this speed, if it collides with a warship, the warship will definitely be severely damaged, or even directly broken. Can your own sword block it? Stop. The moment the air mass approached the warship, Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel roared, jumped up high, and slashed with his sword. Just when the sword in his hand was about to fall, he finally saw clearly who was in the air mass. It turned out to be celestial dragons. The celestial dragons cannot be killed. The Flying Squirrel twisted its body forcefully, and after paying the price of having its arm injured by the shock, the sword blade finally managed to avoid the air mass. However, his body faced the shock wave generated by the big bear's slap. Bang! A shock wave powerful enough to sink the ground was released on the spot. This force was originally used to slow down the buffer and protect the people in the air mass, but at this moment, the person receiving this force was not the ground, let alone the warship, but Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel, that fragile little body. Crack! A mouthful of old blood spurted out directly from his mouth. Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel fell to the ground seriously injured. Lieutenant General! Lieutenant General, are you okay? Lieutenant General, I like you. Flying Squirrel. Regardless of his seriously injured and dying body, Flying Squirrel got up from the ground with a start. As a vice admiral, he still had basic physical defense. Although the injury was not serious, such an impact would not kill him. What's even more terrifying at this moment is who was speaking just now. He looked around and couldn't find the person who had just spoken. On the deck, the Tianlong man who fell from the sky was unconscious. After examination by the ship's doctor, it was found that except for some minor injuries, the man was not dead. It was just due to excessive shock that he temporarily fainted. Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel breathed a sigh of relief and prepared to arrange for someone to send the Tianlong man back to the cabin to rest. After all, they are the world's noble celestial dragons. Although they come to the ship inexplicably, they must treat it with caution and must not cause any problems. But when he looked up, he found that all the Navy soldiers were staying in place. The Flying Squirrel subconsciously looked at the Empress, stunned. At this time, Hancock covered his lips tightly with his hands, his face turned red, and his big eyes showed boundless shock. The previous image of the arrogant and domineering Empress has disappeared. It's him. How can it be? Why did he come here? After all these years, he still refuses to let us go. I have already escaped here, is he going to take us back as slaves? Hancock turned to look at his two younger sisters. Compared with when they were young, the two younger sisters had changed beyond recognition and had the same expression at this moment. She could be sure that the Tianlong in front of her was the one who bought them back then. The Draco who branded them slaves. Hancock took 2 steps back in fear, falling silently, for fear of waking up the unconscious Draco. When people are more afraid of something, the more it will happen. The thing that he least expected to happen happened at this moment. Saint Alsop, who was frightened and fainted after flying in the air for too long, slowly woke up. Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel hurriedly stepped forward to greet him, while Hancock took 1 step at a time, unable to stop. Lie back. Ah, no, Master Chu Lan's hung, don't kill me, let me go, please let me go. Saint Alsop lay on the ground and begged loudly for mercy, not daring to open his eyes at all. Lord Tianlong, what's wrong with you? Flying Squirrel asked eagerly, what happened? I am Vice Admiral Flying Squirrel of the Navy headquarters. I will protect your safety. Navy? Alsop got up with a confused look on his face. He looked at the Vice Admiral in front of him and the blue sea around him. Only then did he realize that he was no longer in Impel Down. Saint Alsop asked, what's going on, where is this? Isn't it Impel Down? The Flying Squirrel replied, Sir, this is the territory of the Pirate Empress, Boya Hancock, and 9 Snakes Island. Pirate Empress? 9 Snake Island. Saint Alsop hadn't come back to his senses yet. He turned around and looked around. When he saw Hancock on the boat, his eyes immediately went straight. Boya Hancock's body suddenly stiffened. I just want to be a quiet Tianlong person. Author, Dai Tianlong. Chapter 52. This woman must become my thing. Just now he was kowtowing to beg for mercy, but the moment he saw the beautiful woman, he immediately forgot about his situation, which showed his true nature as a celestial dragon. However, he immediately remembered Chu Ian's terror, looked around in a panic, and found Chu Ian's figure, and then remembered that this was the 9 Snakes Island that was not far away from Impel Down City. Although he didn't know how he got here, compared to the fact that it would take several days for a warship to get here, Alsop Saint suddenly felt free. This is myself, did you escape? Although I don't know who saved him, I can say that I feel extremely comfortable at this time. That woman. Saint Alsop immediately returned to his arrogant look, pointed at Hancock and said, from today on, you are my wife. Boya Hancock's face turned pale. Come here quickly and let me have a good look at you. Saint Alsop rubbed his hands and walked over with a leer. During the 2 years he was imprisoned in Impel Down City, he never saw even a female creature, let alone a beautiful woman. The level of misery was at most as high as the mountains. Be stronger. Now that I have regained my freedom and met the most beautiful woman in the pirate world, how can I still control my raging desire? What are you still hesitating about? Are you going to disobey the celestial dragon's orders? He cursed angrily, get over here. Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel's face was gloomy. As a member of the Shishibukai, Boya Hancock is a powerful pirate in her own right, and judging from the information she has no good impression of any man, and even has extreme disgust. But now, a man actually insulted and reprimanded her in public. Even if he was a celestial dragon, once he angered the Shishibukai, he would probably be killed. Even if he was not killed, he would be severely punished. Naturally, the celestial dragons would not give up. But when I think about sending a general to attack the King Shishibukai at this critical moment, the Whitebeard pirates' offensive will have unpredictable variables. Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel, I'm not feeling well. This kind of thing is going to happen. Why did he encounter a world-class problem inexplicably? Saint Alsop frowned. The woman in front of him didn't even come over. She was so disrespectful. Elder sister. Sister Hancock, what should I do? The 2 sisters hid behind her and asked tremblingly. No, don't be afraid, we are no longer the children without any ability to resist. Boya Hancock clutched her collar tightly. Even though she said so, Her legs were still shaking uncontrollably. "Wait, come here quickly." Saint Alsop shouted impatiently, and Hancock finally stepped onto the warship. "Oh, what a perfect woman." Saint Alsop came forward and looked at her in circles, his mouth watering. Under that aggressive and lustful look, Hancock bit his red lips tightly, holding back the nausea and shame. Stood there and let him admire her. If any other man had looked at her like this, she would have been turned into stone long ago. But now standing in front of her was a Tianlong man, and the fear hidden in her heart made her unable to resist at all. "Why do you look familiar?" Saint Alsop tilted his head and suddenly said the sentence. Does he still remember? Boya Hancock's expression changed drastically. As did the two sisters. Under extreme fear, their bodies could not stop trembling. Sister growled, "What's wrong with you? Sister Sonia, are you okay?" Mr. Hancock, the two sisters seemed to be feeling very uncomfortable. Someone called Hancock, but at this time Hancock was even more unbearable than the two of them. They were just standing in the distance. Hancock was facing the deepest fear in his heart, and his feet were unsteady. Fell directly to the ground. "Boya Hancock, what's up?" The flying squirrel looked confused and had no idea what was happening. Why did such a powerful pirate empress suddenly fall? Well, that's not important. In the end, Alsop didn't remember who the woman in front of him was. He had so many slaves back then, and he couldn't even remember Hancock, who was still a child at that time. Alsop smiled lustfully and looked at the collapsed Hancock, who was on the ground, slowly stretched out his dirty hands towards her. Hancock pursed his lips tightly, and tears welled up in the corners of his eyes. Under the powerful fear, his body could not move at all. But at this moment, suddenly another man's shout came from the sky. "Get out of the way. My school bus has no brakes." The one who fell from the sky was naturally Chu Lan. The shock wave emitted by the big bear had no steering function at all, and no brakes were designed. It could only rely on the cushioning of the bubble to protect the people in the bubble, and land through a hard landing, but this hard landing, the target is usually the earth. It can't be a person. With such a huge impact, if it hits a person, it is likely to kill the person directly. Chu Lan is facing this situation at the moment. His original plan was for the bubbles to, if you fall on an empty deck, you won't hurt the flowers and plants, and you can land safely. But who knows, the deck is actually full of people at this moment. Why the hell are they doing this if they don't work hard? What? It's a great time to read books on May Day. Recharge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Grab a deposit now. Event time, April 29th to May 3rd. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I just want to be a quiet Tianlong person. Author, Dai Tianlong. Chapter 53. On the deck, when everyone saw the macho man falling from the sky, they immediately ran away and hurriedly avoided. Even the flying squirrel decisively turned around and ran away after seeing the situation clearly. Just kidding, he has already been injured once because of this bubble. If it happens again, he will die on the spot. Hancock looked up at the sky, and the fear in his heart was even worse. The bubble that fell from the sky just now was a celestial dragon, so the one who came this time should be a celestial dragon. It wasn't enough for the celestial dragons who originally treated him as slaves, there were other celestial dragons. Is there no way I can escape such a fate? The Empress smiled miserably, as all her energy seemed to be drained away in an instant, and she lost hope in Shi's Hung. On deck, everyone has an idea. But the most shocked person at this time was Saint Alsop, looking at the bubbles falling from the sky and the man in the bubbles. The arrogance just now, the high spirits just now all disappeared in an instant, and the whole person stayed in place, looking up at the sky, with a look of despair. Alsop St. Get out of the way. Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel shouted loudly, but his body remained motionless on the spot. Strength explains what it means to die as a fellow Taoist but not as a poor Taoist. Bang! Bo! The huge shockwave hit the ground, and the bubbles burst under the huge impact, which played a very good buffering role and protected the safety of the guests inside. Saint Alsop, who was used as a buffer, had blood on his face at this time. Lying on the ground, he fell into coma again, not knowing whether he was alive or dead. Damn it, he's not dead, is he? Chu Lan hurried forward to check. If he is dead, there will be no props to use later. After sniffing, Chu Lan breathed a sigh of relief. As long as he's not dead. Throw it on the ground and ignore him. Lord Chu Lan's hung, Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel stepped forward in time to salute. It's a flying squirrel. Good afternoon. Chu Lan smiled and said hello. He had a good impression of Flying Squirrel. He was a good and dedicated employee. Good afternoon. The Flying Squirrel subconsciously replied, then realized something was wrong and hurriedly asked Master Chu Lan's hung, why did you come here suddenly? Oh, I come to travel. Chu Lan said casually, looking around, and finally saw the beautiful figure not far away. Hi Hancock, good afternoon. Hancock didn't seem to hear Chu Ian's voice, and there was no response. Compared to just now, Hancock was even more desperate because she heard the Vice Admiral calling him, Chu Lan Sheng. This made her last trace of luck disappeared. When she didn't get a response, Chu Lan didn't get angry. She took a rope from the Navy and tied up the living and dead Sheng with Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel's confused look on his face. This was a Tianlong man. Regarding internal matters, Flying Squirrel did not dare to stop him at all. He could only ask weakly, Master Chu Lan's hung, what are you doing? Oh, it's okay, you don't have to worry about it. This is not a problem that I don't care about. This is the kind of thing that I can't control even if I want to. However, it feels quite good to see the high-ranking Tianlong people tied up with ropes. Tied up Air Saint, Chu Lan dragged him, turned around and walked towards Hancock who was standing aside. Hancock looked frightened and backed away, even daring not to look directly at Chu Lan. Not because he was handsome, but because of fear. Well, the celestial dragon she had turned into a slave was right in front of her. He was knocked unconscious and tied up by this young celestial dragon. This was his compatriot. Even his own compatriots were not spared. This is what a cruel person can do. Ah! Facing Chu Lan who kept walking towards him, Hancock retreated continuously until he reached the edge of the deck. There was no way to retreat. If he walked any further, he would fall into the sea. Chu Lan reminded her, showing a kind smile, you are so far away from me, do I look terrible? Hancock quickly shook his head and said in panic, I didn't mean that. That's good. Chu Lan threw Saint Alsop in her hand at her feet and ordered, take him with you and let's go back to Amazon Lily. Hancock froze on the spot, not because of the Tianlong people at his feet, but because of Chu Ian's words. Take him back to Amazon Lily? What does he want to do? Isn't it just to turn himself into a slave again, and even the people on the island? Don't you let the people go? Thinking that the people on the island will become slaves for their own reasons, Hancock couldn't help but cry out in pain. No, even if he becomes a slave again, he must not let it happen. The Tianlong people entered the island. Hancock plucked up the courage and said, Master Chu Lan's hung, there are only a group of very rude women on the island. They will definitely offend you. There is no need to go there. If you need a slave, Hancock said in a trembling voice with a cry. If I am willing, I can bear it alone. I just want to be a quiet Tianlong person. Author, Dai Tianlong. Chapter 54. 9 Snake Island, Amazon Lily. On a high mountain surrounded by dense jungle, a huge cave was opened. This is where the 9 snakes live. This is an island with only women. Even if people who go to sea on the island sometimes come back pregnant with children, all the children born are girls. As the name suggests, it is also called Daughter's Island, and it is a veritable paradise for men. It's a pity that no man is allowed to enter the 9 Snakes Island. Once discovered, they will be eliminated by the warriors of the 9 Snakes. It is simply a hell for men. Because of these 2 reasons, this island has not been restored yet. Chu Lan walked down the deck and came to the spacious street. Both sides of the road were lined with people waiting to greet the Empress. All the people she could see were women. It's just that the girls here are trained as warriors since they are born, so all of them are quite strong. Since there were no men, everyone was wearing cool bikinis that perfectly showed off their strong muscles. Chu Lan suddenly felt that it might be a good thing that the Empress was kidnapped by human traffickers when she was a child. If she were here, there is a high chance that she would become a fierce woman with muscles all over her body. Just look at her 2 younger sisters. They were such cute children back then. What are they now? Especially the 3rd sister. The one that was so small back then has now transformed into another kind of creature. Snakes are not as fat as you, it is embarrassing for cobras, throw the snake. Walking through the long street, people on both sides knelt down on one knee to salute. When they saw a man standing next to the Empress, they all exclaimed. What kind of creature is following Lord Snake? Looks human, but looks nothing like us. Could it be the legendary man? What? Man, a snake exclaimed. Nonsense, how can a man stand beside Lady Snake? Not one, there is another person tied up with a rope behind him, that is also a man. Really, but he is so ugly, but the man in front is better looking. Look at you, you have never seen the world, Chu Lan complained in her heart, ignoring the hundreds of muscular women on both sides of the road who might pounce on her at any time, and quietly wiped away a drop of cold sweat on her forehead. On the surface, he is as calm as an old dog, but on the inside, he is panicking. Hancock, who was standing next to Chu Lan, was so frightened that his heart almost stopped when he heard the disrespectful words everyone said to Chu Lan. Behind them, Sonia and Groud's legs couldn't stop shaking, and they couldn't even walk. Shut up everyone. Hancock noticed Chu Ian's slightly displeased expression and shouted to stop everyone. He released a hint of domineering energy and made everyone quiet down. During the years when she was a slave, she completely understood what the Tianlong people were like. What kind of creature is it? Not to mention those disrespectful words just now, even if you don't salute in time when meeting, you may be tortured to death on the spot. At this time, she angrily scolded everyone, not to reprimand them, but to save them. To her, this "be careful," Chu Lan didn't pay attention. He was not the kind of psychopathic Tianlong, but he was too lazy to make any unnecessary explanations. After Hancock finished scolding everyone, he found that Chu Lan showed no signs of being angry, and quietly breathed a sigh of relief. Entering 9 Snake City, Chu Lan threw poor Saint Alsop to the ground and naturally sat on the huge throne that only snake queens of all generations could sit on. Salome consciously wandered under her body and made a sofa for Chu Lan to sit down. Not bad, soft, cool and very comfortable. The little flower snake Salome, who looked very fierce but was actually very timid, was trembling and tried to help Chu Lan adjust to a more comfortable sitting position. Under the throne, the 3 Hancock sisters knelt on the ground. Chu Lan took the initiative to say, "Lie down with you. You should still have an impression of the Tianlong man in front of you, right?" The 3 sisters stared at Saint Alsop, whose face was covered with blood. Their eyes were full of hatred, and there was also a trace of pleasure that they could not detect. "Impressive." Hancock nodded and said, "This, sir, is. It's the one who bought you back as slaves." Before she finished speaking, Chulan continued, the person who also gave you the slave mark of the flying dragon's hoof, am I right? Yes, Lord Chulan's hung. Boya Hancock bit his red lips, his voice trembled, recalling that horrific experience that he will never forget in his life. On that happy trip to the sea, he encountered human traffickers, and was eventually bought as a slave by the celestial dragon. Although she was still young and not good looking at that time, no celestial dragons touched her. However, she had to do too much hard and tiring work. When the celestial dragons were in a bad mood, they would hit her wantonly. She was scolded and abused, and she couldn't resist at all. This hellish life was brought to her by the man lying on the ground like a dead dog in front of her. How could she forget? How could she forget? I just want to be a quiet Tianlong person. Author, Dai Tianlong. Chapter 55. The Empress held back her tears and lowered her head, not daring to let Chulan see the hatred in her eyes. Chulan stepped down from the throne, raised her pointed chin, and ordered. Raise your head. Elder sister. The two sisters shouted subconsciously, worried that Chulan would be bad for Hancock. Hancock bit his lips stubbornly, suppressing the disgust in his body. If other men dared to lift her chin, they would have turned into stone statues long ago. But at this moment, she didn't dare to resist at all. Because, in front of her, was the Tianlong man. Chulan carefully looked at Hancock's beautiful face with pear blossoms and rain, and couldn't help but admire as expected of the world the first beauty. Although by seeing is on par with you, in front of sexiness, cuteness is simply not worth mentioning. From today on, you are my woman, Chulan suddenly spoke and swore his ownership. Hancock's expression changed drastically, as did the two sisters. What does this mean? Has he finally become a slave again? Chulan did not explain, and stretched out his hand lazy. He ordered, go and get ready, I want to take a bath. Hancock, you will serve me. Hancock was stunned in place, as if he had lost his soul at this moment. The next second, tears couldn't stop flowing out. Hancock wanted to resist, but when he thought of the identity of the person in front of him, his clenched hands weakly let go. If she dares to resist, even if he is harmed in any way, the world government will directly evacuate the Navy Admiral to Nine Snakes Island. By then, everyone on the island will be affected or even die. And she herself and neither of her two sisters could survive. She couldn't resist at all. A stream of blood slipped down her bitten lip, and Hancock accepted his fate in a hoarse voice. Yes, Lord Chulan's hung. Sister. The third sister Marigorod shouted, threw herself at Chu Ian's feet, and begged, Sir Chulan, please let your sister go. I am willing to be your slave, please let me serve you and bathe. Let go, strong man, we have something to talk about. Chulan was so frightened that she took 3 steps back. I'm a normal person, and I have no interest in a fat man weighing 800 pounds. You must not be so proactive. I'm afraid. See you, my second sister, Sanda Sonia. Chulan had no interest in the third sister at all, so she immediately threw herself at Chu Ian's feet, grabbed his ankle, and begged. Lord Chulan's hung, please let your sister go, I am willing to be your slave. No, I don't want to. Even if you are a 500-pound Xiaoqing, you can't do it. Chulan decisively refused. Seeing this, the two women suddenly fell into despair. They knew how attractive their sister's beauty was. Isn't it only a matter of time before the pirate empress, who is known as the most beautiful woman in the world, will be noticed by the Tianlong people? However, they never expected that this time would come so quickly. A deafening bell rang. People put down their half-eaten food, stopped the fierce fighting, suspended all activities, and everyone left Nine Snakes City quickly and orderly. The huge city gate is closed, and it's time for Snake Queen to take a bath. The reason why everyone had to leave Nine Snakes City while Hancock was bathing was naturally because the three of them were afraid that the slave marks on their backs would be seen. At this moment, the celestial dragon who gave them the slave mark was right in front of them. Bathing also requires some preparation, and in the free time before bathing, in order not to be bored, you must always find something to do. Chulan looked at the three sisters kneeling in front of her like they were resigned to their fate, and suddenly asked, "Hancock, I'm here. Do you hate the celestial dragons?" Hancock was stunned for a moment, then quickly shook his head in denial. "I don't hate it." Chulan smiled and said, "There is no need to tell lies in front of me. I know your answer. Tell it and I will not punish you." Hancock said again, "Master Chulan's hung, I really don't hate you. How could you not hate being kidnapped as a child and turned into a slave?" Chulan said solemnly, "It's not that you don't hate, you don't dare to hate." Hancock lowered his head and said nothing. Chulan continued, "Do you know why I brought him here today?" Hancock shook his head. "I don't know." "No, you don't dare to know." Chulan pinched her cheek and asked, "Boya Hancock, do you want revenge?" "Revenge?" Hancock looked at Chulan doubtfully. "Yes, revenge." The hatred flashed in her eyes, and Hancock sobbed. "I don't want to." Chulan laughed, grabbed poor Saint Alsop, pressed her in front of her, and said in a fierce tone, "I will ask you one last time. If you answer me honestly, if you miss this opportunity, you may never have such an opportunity again." Their eyes met. Chulan looked into her eyes and asked seriously, "Do you really not want revenge?" Hancock looked at the extremely noble celestial dragon who had abused her and beaten her countless times. The pain and hatred that had been suppressed in her heart could no longer be controlled. Her fingers were filled with blood, and big teardrops were smashed on her. After landing on the ground, she raised her head, used all her courage, and shouted, "I think reading books on May Day will be great. Recharge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Grab a deposit now." Activity time, April 29th to May 3rd. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I just want to be a quiet Tianlong person. Author, Dai Tianlong. Chapter 56. Ha ha ha, okay, very good. Chulan laughed and clapped. "She deserves to be an empress with domineering looks, and she deserves to be my woman." Hancock tilted his head, with question marks all over his head. He couldn't understand what was happening now. He clearly said in front of him that he wanted to kill another celestial dragon. Why did he look like this? He seemed very happy. Just when Hancock was confused, she heard the man say again, his voice was not loud and even a little casual, "Then kill him." Hancock's eyes suddenly widened. "You say, what? Revenge?" Chulan took her hand, put a dagger in her palm, and encouraged, "Kill him." "Ah." Hancock held the dagger in his hand blankly, completely confused about what was going on. Why is a Draco encouraging me to kill another Draco? Shouldn't I be the one taking revenge? Why does he look worse than me? Positive. What on earth is this? What's the situation? Hancock clutched the dagger, and under the guidance of Chulan, slowly placed the blade on Saint Alsop's neck. Saint Alsop opened his eyes suddenly and saw Hancock's beautiful face very close at hand. "Saint Alsop, I'm crazy." "Go ahead, can you still be such an idiot at this time? I really admire you, your professionalism is as good as Sanji's." Chulan couldn't help complaining and slapped him awake. "What's more, don't turn a blind eye to the performances that should be coordinated." Saint Alsop came to his senses after being slapped, and then he noticed the shining blade on his neck, and his face suddenly turned pale. "Damn slave, what are you doing? Take the knife off my neck." Saint Alsop yelled and scolded, "I am a celestial dragon. If you dare to kill me, everyone on this island will die. Hancock's face turned pale, and the dagger in her hand subconsciously left his neck, because she knew that the celestial dragon in front of her was telling the truth. If she really killed him, the entire Nine Snakes Island might be razed to the ground. Flat ground. Snapped. A crisp sound suddenly interrupted her train of thought. Chu Lan raised her arm and slapped Alsop in the face. You're the only one who talks so much nonsense. I'm just trying to pick up girls. Shut up, tool man. Mouth. The few remaining teeth of Saint Alsop were slapped out, and his whole face suddenly swelled up. He was so hesitant that he could no longer speak. Come on, do it. Chu Lan grabbed Saint Alsop's neck and said to Hancock, cut here. This is the main artery. A fountain can be cut with one knife. Alsop finally realized his situation, looked at the sharp dagger in Hancock's hand, and struggled wildly. Hancock looked at the struggling Saint Alsop in front of him, and held it tightly with trembling hands. With just a slight movement of the knife handle, she could kill the celestial dragon who once tortured and abused her. However, her trembling hands could not complete this action at all. Behind her, the two sisters were equally tight watching this scene. They heard Hancock's answer, but fear prevented them from stepping forward. At this moment, they were looking forward to being able to chop it down with a knife, but they were also afraid of actually killing the Draco who abused them. Unexpectedly, the feeling in her heart, the fear was so strong that she didn't even dare to take action in this situation. Chu Lan scratched her head and decided to push her again. Hancock, if you don't kill him today and let him successfully return to Mary Joa, you three sisters will become slaves again, and the women on the entire island will also become slaves. I believe that the powerful Amazon female warrior will definitely be liked by many nobles. When the time comes, you don't know what kind of encounter they will have, right? Hancock's face changed drastically, and his expression became firm at this moment, and his trembling hands gradually returned to calm. She clenched the dagger and handed it forward slowly but firmly. Saint Alsop looked at the blade that was getting closer and closer, struggling even more crazily. The two sisters looked at each other and saw the determination in each other's eyes. If you want to die, you must die with your sister. The two sisters rushed forward, one person holding down Alsop Saint's struggling body, the other person grabbed his hair tightly, held down his head, and completely exposed his neck. Sister, kill him. Kill him, sister. The two snakes yelled angrily. Hancock finally made up his mind and stabbed hard with the dagger in his hand. Blood splashed. Saint Alsop's eyes widened. He couldn't believe it until he died. He was actually going to die. He was actually killed by his former slave. Life passed quickly, and the light in his eyes gradually disappeared. Celestial Dragon Saint Alsop. Death. I just want to be a quiet Tianlong person. Author, Dai Tianlong. Chapter 57. The three sisters collapsed on the ground, and the bodies slowly slipped from their hands. After being stunned for a long time, the three of them suddenly hugged each other and cried bitterly. Chu Lan sat aside and touched the snake's head happily. What hot-blooded young man doesn't know how to look at women? It's because his hair isn't evenly grown. Whoever beat up Tianlong was just a punch. A savior who doesn't save his brother is just talking without thinking. Do you have to do so many things to impress a woman? Is this necessary? Wouldn't it be more satisfying to bring the culprit directly in front of her and let her do it herself and chop it into pieces with a knife? I don't know how long it took for the three of them to finally stop crying. At Hancock's signal, the two sisters took the corpse and left the palace, looking back 3 times. Lord Chu Lan's hung, from today on, I am yours. Before Hancock could finish her words, Chu Lan interrupted her directly, I don't need a slave. That, Hancock hesitated to speak, completely unable to understand what the domineering man in front of him was thinking. Of course, Chu Lan would not ask Hancock to be his slave. Although it sounded cool, the actual experience was not too bad. Obviously you can change the position after 2 slaps, but you have to hit the slave, which is too boring. Moreover, there is always danger. If one day she cannot bear the humiliation and speaks mercilessly, that would be very fun. Something like armed color domineering might not be able to be covered in time at that time. Don't worry, I'm not interested in you becoming my slave. I'm not interested in you becoming my slave. Well, those strong men were even less interested. Chu Lan said seriously things like slaves should have been eliminated by the times long ago. What I want is a woman who surrenders to me wholeheartedly. Hancock clutched her chest tightly, but she couldn't suppress her violently beating heart. She knelt on the ground, her voice trembling slightly with joy. I am willing. Chu Lan laughed loudly. Let's go, you smell of blood, it's time to take a bath. Please let me take the bath with you. Hancock showed a bright smile that he had never seen before, and trotted after him. The top floor of 9 Snake City. Ah, so vain. Chu Lan lay in the huge bathing pool that occupied the entire top floor, and stretched out comfortably. Such a big bathing room was like returning to his own home. Of course, the person who served him in the bath was changed. From himself the cute and beautiful maids were replaced by the pirate empress, Boa Hancock. This was very cool. The huge door of the bathhouse opened, and a beautiful figure slowly walked into the bathtub. The bath towel wrapped around her body did not do anything at all. Occlusion effect. According to Hancock's original character, if someone saw her body while she was bathing, there would only be one result, that is, she would become a statue and then be smashed to pieces. For a dead person, he didn't feel too shy, but more of a fear of seeing the slave mark behind him. But at this moment, having just killed his enemy with his own hands, Hancock was in a very special state of excitement. The original shyness disappeared. The round jade-like toes gently tested the water temperature, and the slender white calves followed closely into the bath. The overwhelmed towel slipped directly, and Hancock walked towards Chu Lan generously. The fog was thick, vaguely blocking Hancock's graceful figure, adding more interest. Chu Lan leaned on the edge of the bath, looking at the beautiful scenery wantonly. Hancock sat down in front of him obediently. Consciously he took the towel and helped him wipe his body. Chu Lan enjoyed it for a while and took her into his arms. Hancock did not resist, but snuggled up obediently. Hancock's face turned red and he asked softly, Chu Lan, Lord Lan Shen, won't you be angry if I kill your companion? Why am I angry? The purpose of bringing him here is to relieve your anger. Admiral, will you? Don't worry, it won't happen. Chu Lan asked back, how does it feel to have a great revenge? After receiving Chu Ian's assurance, Hancock showed a bright smile and said in a brisk voice. Very happy, as if everything has become different. That's good. Chu Lan gently stroked her smooth back and touched the mark of the ugly flying dragon's hoof. Hancock couldn't help but trembled. Even if the great revenge was avenged, this mark could not be eliminated no matter what. Will accompany her throughout her life. She will be a slave to the celestial dragons throughout her life. However, Hancock did not feel too sad at this time. Because Chu Lan personally told her that he did not need a slave, let alone the island. What was the person doing? There was an inexplicable throbbing in his chest again. Hancock couldn't support his straight back and collapsed in Chu Ian's arms. Chu Lan hugged Hancock's plump body and asked softly. Hancock, do you want to remove the slave mark from your back? I just want to be a quiet Tianlong person. Author, Dai Tianlong. Chapter 58. I thought, wow. Hancock cheered inwardly. This slave mark was a mark of her status as a human being. Even if she had killed the culprit now, the knot in her heart had been resolved. I don't care that much about it, but, if it could be removed, No one would want to keep such an ugly mark. Lord Chu Lan's hung, he doesn't want to be labeled as someone else's slave. That's why he brought Saint Alsop to him for revenge. Can it really be removed? Hancock asked hopefully. She had never heard of a way to remove the mark other than covering it with other marks. Sure, Chu Lan affirmed. As for the mark of the flying dragon's hoof on Hancock, Chu Lan began to think about how to remove it a long time ago. Unfortunately, he has never found a way to perfectly remove the mark. If he does not remove the slave mark, he will be in trouble in the future. When riding a horse, what he saw when he lowered his head was not the smooth skin but the ugly dragon hooves. It was not too disappointing. If he hadn't found the perfect way to solve the mark, he would have taken Hancock away. As for have you been holding it in for so long? Pacifists will kill bears. Perfectionists will kill people. At first, Chu Lan considered normal medical methods to solve the problem, but later found that it was impossible. The medical skills in this world are basically its equal to nothing. The only way to solve this problem is through devil fruit. Chu Lan once sent someone to capture the captain of the Whitebeard pirates, Marco the Phoenix. Although he failed, he found that his bird the bird fruit can only heal one's own injuries, and cannot heal other people's injuries at all. Think about it, if Whitebeard could heal others' injuries, Whitebeard would not be so seriously ill. And Lieutenant General Crane's washing fruit can heal the skin. Get better. Well, making other people's skin better has no effect on your own. However, that only makes the skin better, and cannot restore the scars. In the end, Chu Lan found a recipe in the devil fruit illustrated book, a devil fruit that has not yet appeared in the world, the elimination fruit. It does not eliminate the joy, nor does it make people disappear, but it can directly erase the existence of things. It is so terrifying. It was found at a huge cost. After this fruit, Chu Lan first gave it to a death row prisoner for experimentation. After a period of practice, the death row prisoner was even able to eliminate specific elements in a certain item, and finally could even eliminate oxygen in the air within a certain range. Then, one day, he suddenly felt that he was very awesome, so he came up with the idea of eliminating the sea tower stone. Then, his ability was eliminated by the sea tower stone. Seeing that scene, Chu Lan almost laughed to death, and then he stabbed him to death. He recovered the devil fruit through a special method, and the fruit was saved and never used. It is now with him. Master Chu Lan, tell me how to eliminate it. When Hancock saw Chu Lan not speaking, he actually hugged his arm like a child and began to act coquettishly. Feeling the amazing elasticity and pressure on his arm, Chu Lan couldn't help but think of Nami 2 years later. She must be the first to identify Usopp. She can find an opportunity to kill him first. Chu Lan made up her mind. The first thing she did after returning to Marijoy was to find the location of the Boeing Islands. Don't worry, I've found the perfect way to remove marks. Chu Lan reached out to comfort her violently beating heart, and told her everything about the devil fruit. After Hancock heard this, his eyes couldn't stop lighting up, but then he frowned and said, Master Chu Lan's hung. Just call me Chu Lan. Master Chu Lan. Chu Lan. That's okay, after being called sir for so many years, I'm used to it. Hancock continued, Master Chu Lan, but I have already eaten the sweet fruit of the Superman type, and I cannot eat other devil fruits. Groud and Sonia are already devil fruit users. Don't worry, I've already chosen the person to use this devil fruit. Chu Lan hesitated for a moment and affirmed, you will definitely feel that it is a particularly suitable person. Shiji nodded doubtfully. Seeing that Chu Lan didn't want to say more, she didn't ask any more questions. The two of them stayed in the bath for 2 hours, until Hancock was so weak from soaking that he almost fainted. Chu Lan was now the princess. He carried her out of the bathhouse. Groud and Sonia, who were waiting at the door, saw Chu Lan carrying Hancock out. There was no dissatisfaction in their eyes, only deep gratitude. The two of them saluted respectfully. Lord Chulan's hung, Lord Sister. Chulan nodded and walked straight into the bedroom with Hancock in his arms. Reading books on May Day was a great pleasure. Recharge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Grab a deposit now. Event time, April 29th to May 3rd. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I just want to be a quiet Tianlong person. Author, Dai Tianlong. Chapter 59. As soon as she walked into the bedroom, Chulan saw an old lady sitting on the sofa in the bedroom. If it wasn't Granny Nu, who was Gilaliosa? Granny Nu's face suddenly changed when she saw Chulan carrying Hancock into the room. Man. Hancock, what happened? Hancock was huddled comfortably in Chu Ian's strong arms, smelling the scent of Chulan, and squinting his eyes comfortably. When he heard someone calling him, he suddenly woke up from that state and saw Granny Nu in front of him. Lu Mei raised his eyebrows and asked. Old woman, why are you here? Old woman, Grandma Nu said with a stick, what's wrong with me here? Get out, this is not the place for you to come. What did you say? Granny Nu was furious, who is this man? I heard that you brought a man to Nine Snakes Island. Is he this boy? None of your business. Hancock curled his lips, jumped down from Chu Ian's arms, and introduced Master Chulan. This is Granny Nu, a hateful old woman. You don't want to be like her. Grandma Nu looked at Chulan, her eyes showing scrutiny. Chulan looked at Granny Nu and said with a smile, Granny Nu, I am familiar with the previous emperors of Amazon Lily. It really means that when Cao arrives, the elimination fruit was originally prepared for her. On the entire Nine Snakes Island, she is the only one who can be trusted. Other young warriors, girls have never seen the world at all. If they suddenly master powerful power, it will only harm them, and even harm others. Just like the guy who suddenly got the fruit power, felt like he was in a bunker, and even used the devil fruit power to fuck Halustone. He will definitely be killed. It was definitely not to satisfy Chu Ian's bad taste of letting her and General He have a twosome. Who are you? Granny Nu was surprised that Chulan knew her identity back then. Old woman, if you have anything to say, let's talk tomorrow. Don't disturb Lord Chulan now. Hancock didn't let Granny Nu say anything. He picked up her collar, carried her and walked out the door. As he walked, he turned to Chulan and said softly. Lord Chulan's hung, do you want to have a meal? I have had the banquet prepared. I want to eat you first. Chulan nodded, okay. Hancock carried Granny Nu and went out. Chulan lay on Hancock's more than 100 square meters bed with real men's colors, closing her eyes and resting. This person cannot walk too much. If he walks too much, he will get tired easily. Once he is tired, he will want to go to bed. It seems that a hard-working life and exciting adventures are not suitable for me. It is best to quietly be a Tianlong who has nothing to do with the world. Outside the bedroom, on the huge terrace, Hancock raised his arm and was about to throw Granny Nu from upstairs. The second sister and the third sister quickly came over to stop her. Granny Nu yelled, Shiji, do you know what you are doing? You actually brought a man into your bedroom. Could it be said that you can't control it? Hancock warned, this is my private matter. Snake girl, have you fallen in love with this man? Grandma Nu asked suddenly. What? Hancock was puzzled. Granny Nu continued to ask, when you were with that man, did you feel your heartbeat speeding up and your cheeks getting hot? Hancock was shocked. How did you know? Do you feel some pain in your chest now? You are obviously talking to me, but you keep thinking about that man. Hancock subconsciously covered his chest, his big Kazilan eyes widened. How is this going? Grandma Nu sighed and cursed this hateful virus that doesn't know what to do. Virus? Hancock asked in shock, what virus? Ah, the virus that causes a disease called lovesickness. Grandma Nu sighed, the last emperor died of this disease. How come? Concubine, will I die? Ah, he will die. Hancock stepped back repeatedly, unable to believe that he had contracted such a terrible disease. At this moment, Chu Lan pushed the door open and walked out. Hancock fell into his arms, and the pain in his chest disappeared instantly. She took him with her. She cried and said, Master Chu Lan, I am dying. What the hell? I've been lying on the bed for a few minutes, how come you, a living person, are suddenly going to die? Chu Lan was stunned for a moment, saw her hand covering her chest tightly, and then thought about the presence of Granny Nu, and immediately understood what happened. What happened? Holding her delicate hand on her chest, Chu Lan comforted, don't worry, I won't let you die. Master Chu Lan. Hancock's eyes were blurred and his breath was like blue. The two sisters knelt on the ground and begged Master Chu Lan's hung, please save your sister, Granny Nu's old face changed drastically, her mouth grew bigger but she couldn't speak at all. Sheng Chu Lan, sir. Could it be said that this young man turned out to be celestial dragons? Reading books on May Day is a joy. Recharge 100 and get 500 VIP points. Grab a deposit now. Activity time, April 29th to May 3rd. I just want to be a quiet Tianlong person. Author, Dai Tianlong. Chapter 60. Sonia, why did you call him Lord Chu Lan's hung? Grandma Niu still couldn't believe it and asked again. Because Master Chu Lan is a celestial dragon? Sonia said, of course. Celestial dragons, people, ah. A series of echoes rolled back and forth in Granny Niu's brain. I couldn't believe what I heard. How did the celestial dragons find this place? Did they finally find out that Hancock was the slave who escaped back then? No, this celestial dragon is too young. Could it be that he was just because of Hancock? With her beauty, she came to the island and wanted to threaten Hancock with the lives of the entire island to obey him. Yes, that must be the case, otherwise how could Hancock have those reactions? This is not love, but extreme what a fear. If it weren't for this, and my Granny Nu was so respected by her, how could she throw me out so cruelly? No, I must save them. Granny Nu knelt down on the spot, with crazy eyes, she signaled to the two sisters standing by, you guys, why are you still standing there? Why don't you kneel down when you see Tianlong? Do you know that this will offend him? The two sisters tilted their heads at the same time, completely confused as to why Granny Nu suddenly knelt on the ground. Injured knee? They quickly reached out their hands, lifting her up from the ground. Granny Nu kept struggling and begged loudly, dear Lord Tianlong, these children don't know you and have lost their etiquette. I hope you won't blame them. Chu Lan smiled and said nothing. Hancock on the side was unwilling to do so. Old woman, what are you talking about? Hancock, shut up. Grandma Niu scolded, you may not know how noble the status of the adult in front of you is, but you must remember that you cannot be so rude to the Tianlong people. Old woman, how could I not know how noble Chu Lan is? Hancock said angrily, have you forgotten, when I was a child, I was captured by the celestial dragons and turned into a slave. Grandma Niu winked wildly. You clearly know that he is a celestial dragon, how can you still say such a thing? Could it be that the shadows and fears left in childhood have not been shaken off yet? Even if you have become Snake Princess, you will not be able to see a celestial dragon. Are you still too scared to resist? Granny Nu was thinking wildly, and her whole person was gradually melting. By the way, didn't the report say that two Tianlong people came to the island together? Where is the other Tianlong? So, Granny Nu asked. He said, Lord Chu Lan's hung, the welcome banquet has been prepared. Do you want to go and have a meal first? Will another Lord Tianlong go with him? Hancock's face became darker and darker. What nonsense has this hateful old woman been talking about since just now? The welcome banquet was clearly prepared by me for Master Chu Lan. Why are you here to join in the fun? Hancock shouted angrily. This place has never been there has never been another adult. In the entire Nine Snakes Island, there is only one adult, Lord Chu Lan. As for the Tianlong man you mentioned, I have already killed him. Hancock waved his hand and said, Sonia, take Granny Nu down. What the hell, killing the Tianlong people? The news was so shocking that Granny Nu immediately shut down, and her whole body seemed to turn into a stone statue, stuck in place, motionless. With a snap, the stone statue knelt down again. Snake girl, how dare you say kill in front of Lord Tianlong Gran, such words. Grandma Niu cursed Hancock and begged Chu Lan, Master Chu Lan's hung, she Ji is still young, please, and another adult please forgive her for her rudeness. The second and third sisters had no idea what was going on, but they knew it was best not to participate in the discussion on this topic. Chu Lan fully understood what Granny Niu had misunderstood, and she stood aside and watched the show with a smile. Old woman, stop talking nonsense. I have thrown the body of the celestial dragon who bought me as a slave into the sea to feed the Neptunes. Shiji, you. Granny Niu kept glancing at Chu Lan, trying to analyze some information from his expression. Unfortunately, Chu Lan just looked at her with a smile. Granny Nu finally gave up the idea of fooling the past and sighed. Shiji, do you know that if you hurt the Tianlong people, the Admiral will bring warships to level the Nine Snakes Island? You, run away quickly. Hancock turned over. Rolling his eyes, too lazy to pay attention to her, he turned around and leaned next to Chu Lan. Granny Nu pointed at her and said in shock, could it be that, do you still want to kill this Tianlong man? Granny Nu. Hancock was really angry. From now on, what are you talking about? That Tianlong man is my enemy, Lord Chu Lan is my benefactor. No, I prefer it to be a man. Of course, if you want to call me master or Baba, I can reluctantly accept it. Oh, that is a taste that can be developed later, that's okay. Chu Lan silently complained in her heart. Next, Hancock briefly explained to her what had happened before, and Granny Nu suddenly fell into boundless panic and confusion. Hancock waved his hand impatiently, take this old woman down, don't let her influence Master Chu Ian's meal. Chu Lan raised her hand to stop her and said, it's okay. I just have something to tell Grandma Niu. Let's go to the banquet together. Okay, Master Chu Lan. Hancock took Chu Ian's arm, smiled sweetly, then turned around and said to Granny Nu fiercely. Old woman, thank Master Chu Lan for your kindness. Grandma Niu's face turned pale. What did he want to say to me? Could it be that he wanted to tell me something? Do the Tianlong people not even let me, an old woman, go?